Welcome everybody to the March 12th meeting of the Commission on Aging and Wealth. Our first order of activity is to look at the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any additions, corrections?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I was present.
Oh, did I put you down? I'm sorry. I need my pen.
Okay.
I wasn't listed as
I'm
absent,
sorry.
but I wasn't listed as present.
You
but
were
I know
nowhere.
I'm listed elsewhere as having
Sorry.
seconded.
Has
it,
had
so-
said something, right? Okay.
So I do exist.
You were, yeah.
Is there anybody
It's
else?
always
that we-
reassuring.
Sorry.
Is there anybody else that we skipped up on?
What do you got?
Well, normally they say
Oh, I've missed a
when
lot
a
of
motion is
stuff.
seconded and
Yes.
regarding adjournment,
Yeah.
I don't know that that's important, but
Yeah, but does anyone
I
remember
think
who
everybody
seconded
did it simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing something.
It's
but
usually
I'm
you
on-
guys.
You,
Yeah.
you made the motion.
I'll
and-
edge you.
Well, I was running the meeting.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Don might. You
and-
oftentimes the second.
We'll,
Okay.
we'll put Don down.
Well, since he's there
Since he
now.
was
See, I
there.
was
Yeah,
there
since you're
twice.
in attendance now.
Okay. Yeah, it'll just be easy to remember to add you to
I
both
hope
the
that'll be
beginning
the
and the
biggest
end.
problem we have today.
Right, yeah.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other
I'm glad you
corrections?
guys read them so carefully.
Yeah. Eagle eye.
That's the most common one. Yeah, where were we there?
Yeah.
See what the deal is, you probably forgot to sign that little paper.
No, he did, yeah, I don't know.
That I don't know.
Be
That
sure
I
to
don't
sign the paper
Speaking of
today.
signing,
Okay, if there are no additional changes, do we want to approve the amended minutes?
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Oh, opposed? Approved. Okay. Public appearance, there are nobody here, there's nobody here for public appearance. So we'll move quickly into the agenda items, and David is here to talk with us about the annual report.
Yeah, does anybody not have a report with them?
I did not print
I
it
didn't
out.
print it.
Oh, yours are in color.
I didn't
Fancy
give
this
you
year.
a color.
Oh, I
You need
guess one
anybody
more.
else? Okay. Alright, good.
I have an extra.
There we go. Okay.
Deal.
Mine's not as pretty as yours.
It's not.
I printed them out for you to give it
Really putting this together this year. It sounds like a broken record, but programs and everything within the building itself continues to just sort of amaze us with the popularity of all the programs that we have at the senior center. Sort of nice that during the school year and just during the daytime hours that we have the availability of having the upper floor and the lower floor in combination with our programs. If we didn't have that usage of the upper floor, we would be in big trouble for room space. There's not many days that go by that rooms are not utilized at all times. And so that's, the goal of what we try to achieve is not only to have the parking lots full, but that the classrooms are full and that we're offering programs that people come for and enjoy. And so that's, again, another great year for that. Just skimming through the annual report, you can just see sort of the highlights in color, sort of identify the different segments of what we do. The social work report, year in review, we start there and then work our way down through the social work report. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I mean, it's overwhelming to try to encompass it all in one
The one
thought.
that I wanted to point out is,
Oh, right.
Oh.
That's my fault.
is it,
Yeah.
still
Ada
time to
Deer would
change
be
it?
so
It's not-
unhappy.
Oh, we can change it and repost it online and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fitchburg Star made a grievous error, which will be in print in the newspaper
Not
about the results of the comp plan.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's not a big deal,
So-
Dorothy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a big deal.
That is,
No,
but
this,
not
I
that.
mean, to change this, yeah,
This
yeah,
is not,
yeah, no.
yes. As long
Yeah.
as it's not,
Yeah. Okay.
So does anybody have any questions about any of the numbers?
Is that more than, how does that compare, with the number of clients? Is that more or about
Yeah,
the same,
everything
pretty
is
stable?
up,
Up.
not dramatically in any
Okay.
different category,
Mhm.
but all the numbers are up
Yeah.
across the board.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea how the new apartment complex that's for senior housing is going to impact? the
Well, I
senior-
have that on my list to talk
Okay,
about,
I'm sorry.
actually, yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing, David, I was wondering about, when you had the 2019 senior center collected, there, I didn't see any reference to the legacy fund. Is that not something that we include in this?
Jill, you can.
I did not include the legacy fund in there.
Okay.
But, that's a good idea too. So it's the first year I've really kind of highlighted any income, because I think when we present our budget, it's a lot about, it's all expenses and it's never about revenues. And we're one of the few senior centers that actually collect revenue for programs. A lot of senior centers, everything is still, they collect the fees for the instructor and they pay the instructor. But the Commission on Aging, years and years ago, we decided we want to collect that. So, and then our county funding has increased dramatically, particularly over the last 5 years. So I wanted to keep that front and center too, and then the Friends. But I can tell you from the legacy fund, just the legacy. So we have the legacy fund, and then we also have memorials, and we try to keep that separate. It goes in the same fund in the city. I can tell you from the legacy fund last year, it was about 7,000, and memorials probably close to 2. And so we still have that revenue as well that we have identified to use this year. We used some legacy funds to buy the new piano this year already, and then we have some other thoughts about those legacy funds. But yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Just the memorials and the legacy funds.
Any other questions on that page?
Well, I guess along those lines, and, support from the Friends, that's,
Right here.
that's in there,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So the programs are primarily my wheelhouse. I pretty much make sure everything's running smoothly in the building, that programs are going well. The offering of new programs, what's maybe not working, looking at dismantling that, adding something new. Those are the type of things that we try to keep our, finger on the pulse. And that's very important. Rooms are valuable, so we want to make sure that participation in each of our programs is up. The numbers for health and wellness, education, and social leisure are up across the board. Social leisure has had quite a boost in its number in regards to the 3. Just different card groups that have sort of taken off. Mahjong, Sheep's Head's really huge. It's been huge the last couple of years, but just more. And so we're seeing new people being pulled into these activities. And so we don't know how that happens, but it's word of mouth. People like coming to our facility. So we'll take it for that.
And this counts only programs run by the senior center, not any programming that happens by groups that occurs in the senior center?
From 8 to 4 o'clock is senior center programs only.
So are you talking like MATC or Plato or something
Well,
like that?
I'm thinking there's other card groups that come into the senior center, and that would be evening things. There was a fishing, fly tying.
No, that's not us.
None of that sort of thing is
Yeah.
counted
No,
in
right,
these.
right.
Okay.
Those are
8 to 4.
renters and, yeah.
Okay.
But certainly, we have an evening Boost Your Bones class right now, like that would be counted. We don't have a ton of evening stuff, because there's a competition for space, it's like, we can't hog it all up during the night too, even though I'd like to,
David, can you clarify for me what unduplicated 539 means?
Well, when we put all the numbers into the database, or names into the database, we can pull out one large number of individuals unduplicated. So when you look at the different categories here, we can say, well, there are 674 people that participate in health and wellness. There could have been Jim Sosnowski that participated participated in aerobics, but also participated in yoga and other programs. That's just the total number of individuals that participate across the board in each category. The unduplicated is just the number that we draw out of the database. That's just unduplicated numbers that come through our doors.
So Jim only shows up once,
Just
no
shows
matter
up
how many
once.
programs he's involved in.
Correct.
Okay.
Some people come to 5.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
And does that include volunteers, like kitchen people?
No,
No.
this is programs only.
It doesn't
Nutrition
include
program and
any,
volunteer
um,
report down below on that same page.
Right, no
Oh, there it
case
is, yeah.
management
Okay.
clients, so you might have a client that participates in exercise, but is also a case management client.
Correct.
So they're counted in case management too, you know what I
Okay.
mean? In those numbers, but only once in our number, if
Right.
that makes sense. It's a crapshoot to count these numbers, and we're,
Mhm.
every year we go, oh, this works, this didn't work. In fact, today we're meeting, a lot of focal point directors are meeting about a new database and maybe upgrading our database. We're always talking about that because how we collect data is really important. But it's really expensive to buy programs that really can do what we need them to do, and then things change, and reports change, and county stuff changes, and so it's a big job.
This is really impressive, almost 1,000 people a week.
Yeah.
And
Man.
looking
Yeah.
at that number, that's the one I really focus on, because
Yeah.
when we talk about people, being in our database, well, with privacy issues and things like that, we have people that come in,
Oh,
they have
yeah.
no
Records.
incentive to want to put their name down, an
Right.
address, email, things like that.
Mhm.
And so I will literally walk around the building with a counter on certain days and just knock off the numbers that are coming in the doors. And
One question,
That's-
oh, sorry.
yeah, and that's just really important to know how many people are coming through our doors, because that's really the accurate count there versus hoping that someone's gonna put their name down on the aerobics.
Right.
The movie days, things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Through our doors, how about the breakaway sports walking? Do we count them?
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's in the health and wellness.
Okay,
Another program
but
that's
that's
taken
not
off
through
for
our
sure.
doors though, but it's sponsored by the senior center.
Yeah.
Correct, right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because I'd say how many average indoor walking?
The average would be 25.
25, but high days,
I guess
35.
30, 35.
yeah. So it's a very healthy community, and that reflects on our health and wellness participation,
Mhm.
for sure.
Great.
Jill, is there anything that you wanted to touch upon with nutrition or transportation?
No, I think, it kind of speaks for itself. Like you said, they're going up. I think we might see a decrease in meals this year. We're going to see some up and down with that, but overall, no, things are going really well. I thank Dave for putting this together. It's a lot of work, like I said, to make sure everybody checks in and signs in, and hopefully every year we can keep improving that, because numbers matter when you go for funding, and so yeah.
Are the instructors for aerobics paid based on who signs in?
That is the only program that they are not. All the aerobics and functional fitness instructors are LTEs. So they are city employees, and so they are paid by the hour. Every other program is a independent contractor, and so it's an 80-20 split. So even though the instructors for functional fitness and aerobics are LTEs, I still watch very closely that the revenue we bring in meets the criteria of the 80-20, and that's why you might see an increase in fees. So I even though they're getting paid hourly, I want to keep that 80-20 split, make it fair to show the city we're bringing in. But an independent contractor, the yoga people, they get 80% of whatever signs up. And so,
And that would be Bones too.
yes, right. Well, yeah. It gets a little sketchy with that because she's still an LTE, but yes.
Yeah.
Right. So if that makes sense.
So, I have a question about the 62 people. That's a lot of rides per person.
It is, but when you get someone who's coming 5 days a week,
Mhm.
it adds up really
Mhm.
quick.
Mhm.
And that's what we have a lot of regulars. We
Mhm.
did see shopping increase too, which is
Mhm.
kind of nice, yeah. Mhm.
Is that talking one-way or two-way rides?
I don't know how that's go. We used to do it both. We did it one way and then we did it 2 ways. I don't know if a ride is a ride.
Yeah,
We
I'd
go-
have to ask Randy that.
Yeah, we go around with our SVP too, because some people just need one way and some people need a round trip. But most of the time it's round trip. So I gotta talk to Mandy about that.
In the Transportation Commission, we do one way, one
You
trip.
do one, that's one trip?
That's one trip, back is the second trip.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would make sense, yeah.
So that would make more
Yeah.
sense,
Because
yeah.
sometimes people get picked up or
Absolutely,
do
yeah.
other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same with our SVP too.
So this sort of illustrates, I mean, if you have more people needing more rides,
Mhm.
you have a lot
Yes,
of rides to cover.
yes.
You're very, very.
Well, right, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
massive.
why we had that big
It's an
discussion.
unresolved issue.
And
Yes.
it continues to be, you
Right,
know, and the
right.
apartment will impact us greatly,
Mhm.
yeah, so, yeah.
It's, yeah, it illustrates the need dramatically.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Questions?
Just one quick question. Who's eligible to take advantage of the senior transportation?
Anyone 60 and older or disabled. So those are the county policies, not ours. So, yeah, our SVP is the same, except they only take 60 and over. I don't think they do anything younger and disabled. It's 60 and over. But the nutrition bus and the shopping bus, is supposed to be 60 and over. Or if you have a disability.
Is there any income
No,
criteria in there?
no.
RSVP is included in this?
RSVP is not included. I can tell you, we average about 40 rides a month. We used to do more, it seems a little less right now. We've really worked with the social workers to get people on, Metro Plus. You know, for a while, you know, everybody wants a one-on-one driver.
Sure.
And it was just getting too much. And, Metro Plus will come as far down as Chapel Valley Road. So some of the people, in the senior housings, Chapel Valley and McKee, are eligible for Metro Plus. Certainly, it doesn't work for everybody if they need more assistance. Oftentimes, and you have to go through a process. You have to qualify for Metro Plus. You have to physically qualify. It's not a financial qualification. So you have to get yourself down to Madison to do an interview to see if you physically qualify to use Metro Plus. So even though it goes to those apartments, not everybody physically qualifies. But we have done better about moving people on there. It's not our, you know, we'd rather have our own drivers take them. Numbers vary too when we look at somebody that, you know, we were taken to dialysis for a while or had PT appointments, and that ebbs and flows. It might take a lot of trips and then they get better, and so that ebbs and flows too.
So for the Metro Plus, you
Mhm.
said it goes as far as,
Chapel Valley Road, because that's about a quarter of a mile from the grocery store, you know.
right,
Yeah.
so
From
how do
Reagan.
they get here from there?
Well, if we're talking medical rides, you know, it's just to their home. There is no Metro Plus. It's only the county bus that brings them down here.
Okay,
Yeah. We've leaned on RSVP a little bit more this
Mhm.
year already to bring some people here for ukulele. And, you know, it's kind of a gray area. If we have enough drivers and RSVP has enough money to reimburse the drivers, granted the drivers want mileage reimbursement, we can sort of expand how we use RSVP. But the moment that they see that their money is gonna run out to reimburse drivers for their priority, which is home delivered meals and medical rides, then they'll pull back on that, so there's never a guarantee. But right now, we have ample drivers that we can pull and say, you know, we don't advertise this, which I just did on the TV, but, you know, we can't make a habit of it because, you know, I'd love to use it all the time, but the priority has to be medical. And home delivered meal drivers are RSVP drivers, but that's a different list of drivers, but it's still the same pool of money. And so it's really contingent on the funding that RSVP has. Years and years ago, we had so many rides and we had so many needs that the Friends group actually was cutting a check to RSVP every month to help reimburse our drivers so we could use more drivers, which, you know, is not out of the question for us to do that again, rather than the Friends, you know, buying a bus or whatever other things we've talked about you subsidizing or the Friends subsidizing, so, yeah.
So again, I am completely sold on the need to get a Madison Metro bus that comes here all day, every day. That solves damn near everything.
I know there's a lot of talk going on right now, and there was a meeting this week about that, but I don't know where it's at. And I know there is supposed to be a city-appointed committee to start to address transportation again,
Mm-hmm.
but that's all I know.
Well, I think senior center, senior friends, this commission, everyone needs to pound on that committee about why it would be worth investing in that service.
Well, and this is the civic campus, so it's, you know, they can get here for other
Right.
things too,
Mhm.
you know, library.
Imagine being able to take a bus to the library,
Right,
Ah.
right.
Who
This
do
is
we
a
contact?
broken record.
or a bus to vote.
Somebody here.
That committee hasn't been.
Don't have to convince any of us.
You could,
Well,
you
certainly-
contact your alderman. you know,
Yeah,
I
certainly
think that's the
council
best.
members,
Yeah,
but
that's- yeah.
there's the transportation, Transit and Transportation Commission.
And I went to
You
their
can get
last
a hold
meeting
of-
and we talked, you know, cause they were prioritizing and, you know, I think that they heard what what our concerns were from the senior center standpoint and, you know, open to hearing that. And I think that you know, Bill Horns is on that committee to keep the needs of the senior center, up front,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and hopefully Bill can always do that while he's there and work with me to give him, you know, the most updated information and what we're needing. I'm sitting on a county group that's gonna address transportation for the next budget already. We're already working on our priority issues for the 2021 county budget, and what that transportation ask would look like. We just met this week, so, yeah, there's a lot of wheels turning out there, you know. It's a big,
And knowing that all that money comes down from the state, are there particular state people that could be talked to?
you know, I don't know, we're talking to the transportation manager, Jane Betzig, you know, she knows what the needs are.
Mhm.
I don't know, I think 8521 might even come federal, the Older Americans Act money, so it might be bigger than just the state. But certainly, it's always been an issue for the Wisconsin Aging and Advocacy Network. You know, we actually did a lot of advocacy last year to get more 8521 money and 8520, and that was awarded. How that's gonna be distributed, I'm not sure yet, because it's a big pocket of, you know, it's roads, it's sidewalks, it's transportation, but there is advocacy at the state level as well. So,
You know, we really need to implement better transit.
through the city,
Mm-hmm.
I agree,
Funding is always the issue,
always.
so if we can pull more funding from other directions, that would be so helpful, rather than just putting it all on the levy.
Right, partnerships, you know,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, David, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. I'd like to thank you very much for presenting for us.
Appreciate it.
Move on to the Code of Conduct policy.
Did you all bring your copy, or I have lots of copies too?
That one I did print.
Anybody?
That one I printed.
You got that on the red. Is that the one with all that though, Alice? Or is that what yours is?
Alice has the red line.
Yeah, okay, all right, yours just looks bigger and better, yeah.
It's my
Wow,
husband's
why-
printer.
Oh, yeah, look at how big your things are.
Yours has the comments in it.
Yeah, right, that's what I thought I
Yours
sent
got
to all
shrunk
you.
down for the comments.
Well, here, how about I printed them all out, so just take mine too, and then if they're all the same. Yeah, right. There you go. Okay. All right, so I did try to implement everybody's comments, some sort of doubled up, so I just try to combine. And then Barb had some ones last night, which I didn't print out, but hopefully you'll remember, so, start,
Yeah.
anybody, yeah.
Add aging well in the first
Oh,
line.
thank you. Okay.
And just a suggestion to reword the first sentence in the code of conduct to the senior center shall enforce adopted rules regarding participant conduct, remove negative, and then start the next sentence with prohibited negative conduct includes.
Okay.
It's a little more positive. Oh, I'm sorry, and then, under purpose of the policy, I don't know how, to ensure a safe, positive, inclusive,
Oh,
and
nice.
healthy environment.
Yeah, I like that.
Me too.
And then, under enforcement, I would just reverse those two paragraphs and start
Yeah, I
with
thought that too.
the senior center
Mhm.
staff first, and then the concerns.
Yeah. I agree.
And we had talked about using the word expelled somewhere, but I don't know. I think we kind of left that up in the air. Should we use the word expelled rather than privileges will be revoked? I'm fine with that.
I like revoke better than expelled.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
The connotation is different.
A little
Yeah.
bit, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a little more clear. It tells exactly what's gonna happen.
Mhm.
And I think you said last time that the city attorney said it's fine to permanently revoke privileges.
I need to double check, cause we're already rethinking somebody.
Oh,
You know, I'm such a big believer in second and third, and
yeah.
this individual has been gone for probably a year.
Well, you do give them a chance to,
Right, right. But-
appeal.
But then,
It says up to 3 months.
right.
So,
So, you know, now it's been a year,
oh,
and, you know, I just,
is there
it's
a,
so hard. I don't like to, I thought about that on this, I don't know how to address that, like, cause then you sound wishy-washy, but everybody deserves second, I'm a third,
well, then
fourth,
maybe
fifth
just,
chances.
maybe just
You know, I
take
don't know.
away the 3 months?
Or rather
Yeah.
than using will, use may.
Yeah.
And that last one talks about, it can be appealed to the commission, but can we do something, that would include, the client is not appealing, but the commission, or the staff is, considering reinstating without an appeal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you could
Or
say that,
reviewed,
you could say that they could, that they can appeal the decision, but, and then you could add another bullet, that, participants, or former participants may submit a request for reinstatement, blah, 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 I don't know how you want that process to work.
Yeah, cause I don't wanna bring it to the commission every time and
Right.
talk about somebody on TV, and, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
Yeah.
could be just at the discretion of, you know, senior
Senior
center's staff that.
Yeah.
Kinda
You
like you already added to that paragraph before the violations, right? That
Mhm.
you'll be the judge of what happens.
Mhm.
You could also be the judge of
Changing my
reversing
mind.
and changing your mind. Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
Right,
So you don't have
Right.
to call it out maybe necessarily, but
Right,
give
right.
yourself
That
permission to
opt
do that.
out. So how, you feel like it's already been stated, Laura? Like
No,
I
I-
have to, okay.
I think maybe a few more changes, but you have staff will be the sole judge of what is negative conduct and behavior, and you have the right to take any action.
Right,
Maybe something after each case is considered on an individual basis. How can you make it more?
right, and without just going into a whole bunch of
including
verbiage.
requests for reinstatement. You could just add a statement that, each case including requests for reinstatement. Well, I don't know. I feel like you wanna spell out that there is an opportunity, once you've been
Yeah, revoked permanently, you
Revoked.
actually aren't.
Well, I do agree with Don was saying that they may be asked to leave the center permanently instead of will be asked.
Yeah, okay. Oh, immediate, wait, which one are you looking at? Yeah. So look at this,
You know,
Or, I guess not may,
Yeah.
there, but they may be revoked permanently. That's where it should go in the fourth violation.
yeah,
So then you can change your mind.
Right.
thank you.
I mean, you
Yeah.
could,
That's all I need.
you could
Yeah.
ban
Right.
them initially and then say,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called
new-
wiggle
New
room.
news.
With what?
Yeah.
Wiggle room.
That's what I need. I always need
Yes.
wiggle room.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And you have the authority up here.
Mhm.
Do we need to spell out a request for reinstatement?
What I did on, as a bottom bullet is request for reinstatement may be considered by staff as deemed appropriate.
Yes.
Mhm.
I still think that we ought to give the staff the flexibility to reinstate without an appeal.
Correct.
And
That's what-
that,
That was, right?
That-
What you think,
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
to, your, do yours again?
Yeah,
I think
say
it
it
says that the
It says
client has to
re-
ask.
Requests for reinstatement may be considered by staff as deemed appropriate.
And you're saying it wouldn't have
I'm
to come
saying,
with a request.
I'm saying Jill should have the right to say, you know, we would like to review your situation and give you an opportunity to come back, without them ever requesting.
Mm.
Why would you do that?
Because Jill's such a soft heart. You know, sometimes people are reluctant to make a request or an appeal,
Yeah.
but their behavior is such that, you know, you're willing to let them come back. And I think that Jill should have, or the staff, Jill or the staff, should have that flexibility and not have it, you have to make a request before we'll consider.
Well, that line would also potentially include requests by staff for reinstatement.
It's just
Well,
anybody
yeah,
can make a
request by the
request.
individual or by staff. Because it was kind of instigated by a staff person
Mhm.
that felt like, you know, we should
Okay,
readdress
that looks
this
good.
client.
Re-
Why don't you
request
just
by an
say,
individual
why don't
or
you
staff.
just say reinstatement may be considered by staff as deemed appropriate?
Then you won't have to have requests at all.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
way to
Good
go,
one.
Barbara.
However, I still think that there's something to be said for people acknowledging that their behavior may have been inappropriate,
Yeah,
and that by submitting a request that they do that and make a, you know,
Well-
acknowledge that perhaps they should do better in the future.
well, we talked about that because, we said, well, if this client comes back and then the behavior just immediately, you know, is there again, you know, do we, that's it, you know, you know, or do you give that second warning and the
Right.
third
Yeah,
warning?
no.
Do we go through
No.
the whole process
No.
again? So maybe to develop something that they would sign to say, you know, I'm aware that, you know, my privileges were revoked for
Okay.
this particular behavior.
Are contingent on
Yeah, right, yeah.
continued good behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I can draw something up for them to sign and make them aware of, you know, let's review why, you know, your privileges were revoked, but certainly we, you know, wanna
Well-
have you come back.
But they are going to have to, these participation standards are going to be posted, so
Yes.
everybody has to agree to
Right.
that
Mhm.
by default.
Yeah, right,
So
yeah.
you wouldn't need to have them sign it. You might want to
I'll
verbally
have
go
them review
over it
yes,
with them.
right,
But, you know, to have something,
Yeah.
then you've got to keep it on file and
right.
have a process for it and so
Oh,
on
yeah.
and so forth. But you could just
But
put
we'll
this in
have
front of them.
Right, and there'll be a note, you know, we document these sort of things, so there would be a note in their files saying, you know, discussion had with so-and-so on this date, policy review.
May I ask, how many people have been revoked?
Right, 3.
In your whole tenure?
So it
We're
doesn't
pretty
come
well
up.
behaved group.
Yeah, right. No, for sure, or I just let things slide. And that's some of it too.
I think there's good peer expectation
For sure,
of good
yeah,
behavior.
yeah.
The sentence that the director reserves the right and so forth.
Mhm.
Perhaps we need a comma in there, or authorized representative, in that if you're gone,
Yes,
we don't wanna wait till you get back
Good
yes.
point.
to take an action that's warranted.
Good point.
So Jill, if somebody, did something that was, inappropriate, and you knew that they had some signs of dementia,
Correct.
so then do you deal with the individual plus a family member or somebody else?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was,
So they would
a
be-
similar situation of what came about from this. And so, there's a lot of complications when somebody is struggling with, mental illness,
Right, yeah.
which is oftentimes the case, dementia.
Yeah.
And so, that's what makes it hard, because, that's manageable, generally it's not fixable, but you still have to worry about the safety of the other participants,
So there would be a designated family member or somebody else.
Well,
if
some
they
don't
have-
have,
if they
right,
have one.
and some don't, and that's, that's a struggle as well, and so then when they don't, you feel like we're it. And this particular client I'm thinking of is, we kind of are it, and so, it's, if we pull away, what does that client have if we can't be the ones to give them a second and a third chance? Because the behavior that's being exhibited sometimes is beyond their control, because it might be related to mental health issues, and that's hard to deal with. Luckily, the county has awarded $200,000 for mental health support. The RFP is out right now for the county to hire some mental health consultants that will meet with each focal point, each senior center, mostly case managers, to say, here's how you can deal with that person a little bit better. We kind of know from experience, but we're not mental health experts. And there's a lot of support for people with dementia too. The mental health is a little trickier oftentimes. So that's why, you to feel like when someone has a mental health issue and to ban them completely, who do they have, The other person that was banned was just really mean. And that was a while back, and that behavior was not gonna change, and it wasn't mental health. They were just not a nice person, and it was a toxic environment. So I didn't really have any, I was like, you have a choice. It's easy, be nice or not. But other people try their best, and then they just can't keep it together. And so, yeah. Okay.
Any other
Yeah,
modifications?
did everybody?
I had just one question.
Yeah.
It looks like you have the dates on there.
Mhm.
Are you're planning to include those in any posted version?
Yes, for
Okay.
sure, for sure.
Good. I was just thinking to help
Right, to
keep it
remind us.
fresh and-
Absolutely, yeah.
when do we
You
last
mean-
look at that?
Right, oh, for sure, yeah.
For reference.
Yeah.
Do we want to postpone
Yes.
until our next meeting for approval, so
Yeah.
that we have
Yeah.
all these changes?
Oh, for
and-
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
The final.
Because I don't think that, I shouldn't say, hopefully nothing will happen in between, but, I'd rather have a really solid policy that we're all comfortable with.
Right, yeah.
Before we make any decisions to approve it, so, okay, I'll
Okay.
incorporate those changes and get them out to you.
Okay, and then we will act on that next
Mm-hmm.
meeting.
Yeah, if we're that far.
Okay,
All right.
participation standards.
Did y'all get that?
Mhm.
Okay. Alright. So this was kind of, this was driven by the situation with, folks from the group home coming that we were having to support. And we never really had a policy about that. How do you handle yourself when you come to the center? And so, I created this hoping to, be able to, you know, give this, not that group home participants can't come, it's perfectly fine, but their caregivers or whomever need to know what our policy is. And so when this happened, I was like, I can tell you what I think, but I don't have a written policy about it. You know, I can tell you how we need to operate here. So that's why this came about.
Should we call this a policy then? It's, you know, the code of conduct says policy after it.
Right.
And this is gonna be a policy.
And
Should we-
certainly that title can change too. I couldn't really figure out, I wasn't thrilled about participation standards. I don't know if that really identified what I was trying to get across, so if you have any suggestions. I like the word policy better, but policies, you know, participation policy standards maybe. I'm not sure.
Why not just policy?
Just participation policy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That feel good, you guys? Okay. Make it easy.
You know, it's all, you also, I mean,
And
you
then,
just don't-
then
you
it
don't
says
want
purpose of policy, so it
Right,
explains the
does
title.
explain it, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then
Alright.
it says policy under the details.
Yeah, that's true, yeah, okay.
You might state that it is to, the purpose of the policy is to ensure a standard level of participation so that all you know, or something, since you want the word, I think what you wanna set a standard.
Mm-hmm.
So you might incorporate standard in the sense of baseline
Mm-hmm.
in purpose of the policy. To establish a
We would- and
a
we would call those
standard that
activities that they're
ensures
living.
all participants will conduct themselves.
That's, that would be the healthcare team.
Right,
Yeah.
but a lot of people wouldn't know what that is.
Right.
Say that one more time to ensure that all.
Maybe to
So-
establish a standard that ensures.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Purpose of.
In the policy itself, you've talked about participants as well as senior center staff. That's also should be part of the purpose of the policy is to not infringe
Oh,
upon
I see.
normal activities of other participants and senior center staff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'd like a little something in there about self-care.
Can you expand on that?
What does conduct themselves mean, I think is kind of my question,
Mm-hmm.
to expand on what conduct themselves means.
I think self-care is actually pretty clear.
Self-control.
Yeah, you better you have to be able to take care of yourself.
Can you put that in a sentence?
I haven't figured that out yet.
I was like, I can't figure that out. So will
I see what you're saying.
provide self-care or, will be,
Demonstrate, to ensure all participants conduct or demonstrate self-care and conduct themselves.
That would get pretty darn close.
Demonstrate an appropriate level of self-care.
now we need to
Then you
identify
have to
what's
establish what's
appropriate.
appropriate.
What's
Yeah.
appropriate.
Or
Yeah.
personal care.
Personal care is usually that's the way the healthcare people would describe.
Personal care.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Is it, are we talking about hygiene? Is that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's,
That's
Toileting.
a huge part of it, yeah.
Dress yourself, clean yourself.
right.
Responsible for?
Someone goes into the
Responsible.
public toilet and
Instead of
isn't able to
demonstrate.
clean
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
or
Or
the
the floor.
facility.
Responsible for self-care,
Mhm.
yeah. Right, that's,
And conduct themselves. So it's not, do we need and conduct themselves? So it's, well,
I like that.
I think so, because you could have somebody wanting to be waited on
Oh, for sure,
a
yeah.
lot.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, and we do.
Yeah.
And we're here to serve, right?
Right.
Give me a cup of tea.
Yeah, I don't want that, I want that. Okay, so, read what you have.
Okay. Purpose of the policy, to establish a standard that ensures all
Yeah.
participants are responsible for personal self-care and conduct themselves so as not to infringe upon the normal activities of other participants and senior center staff.
Nicely done.
Amen.
Sounds, yeah,
That really
yeah.
Nails it.
Sounded really good.
Question, I like the addition of staff. Does that include anybody teaching, like those independent contractors who might
Yeah.
be?
Could be volunteers too.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
did in the other policy, didn't it state that
In
in
the
that?
code of conduct?
Yeah, that, in that
I
second
don't
paragraph,
know.
senior
Oh.
sole judge of, oh no.
I don't
Other
thought we defined
participants,
who the-
staff, and volunteers.
Where did, didn't we, wasn't that somewhere?
Did you add that in, or was it in there?
No, I added volunteers. Upon the normal activities of other participants, staff, staff, and volunteers.
But should we put,
We want instructors in there.
instructors paid or not, cause some you know what I mean?
Well, I think
Or just
instructors
instructors covers
both.
it,
Yeah.
and instructors?
Personally, I think that if you just say staff, you've got it covered. You
Well, the
don't
paid
need to
ones,
get-
yeah, and then
don't
volunteers
need
are
to get their
volunteers, that's
staff.
true.
Mhm.
So,
They're volunteer staff.
cause our
Yeah.
LTE people are paid, and then
Paid staff.
if you're not paid, you're a volunteer. So if we added the volunteer, we might be covered with instructor, senior center staff, so.
You don't wanna get in a situation where you're listing.
And then you forgot me.
Yeah, then that's what happens.
Jill could do what
You
she
say, "Wait a
normally
minute,
please."
you
Yeah.
forgot this one.
So senior center staff and volunteers?
I think that does cover, like I said, because this situation, the one was, with an instructor, but they're a paid instructor. And then we have, mostly volunteers that are, facilitators and leaders, but they're volunteers. So, yeah.
So then going back to our previous discussion on senior centers, that's,
The
no,
purpose?
yeah, no, the only place that the, staff comes up is under enforcement, and volunteers would not be
Correct,
involved
right,
in that.
right,
So I
right,
don't think we need to address volunteers
Mhm.
in the code of conduct, because, it's an all-encompassing on programs, and
Mhm.
programs would include volunteers.
Okay. All right.
One question I had on the participation policy was there value in including like a reference to the code of conduct? By participating, you also agree to the code of conduct? Because I think in a past discussion we talked about it's posted, but it's
Right.
not necessarily available maybe unless there's a problem.
Right.
And I don't, maybe that's my time working with legal departments trying to cover all of our bases.
Sure.
but Is there any value in mentioning that
Let's see.
in the participation policy specifically?
Yeah, reference back to the code of conduct
Yeah.
would be appropriate.
Because the conduct is mentioned in the purpose of the policy, but
Right.
conduct is really not mentioned in the
Well,
policy
and you know what's,
itself.
it's kind of morphing into, then I was like, well, we don't even need this because we have all of this, we could almost incorporate, because it's all about participation in, our behavior when you're at the senior center. But the intent of this was more about your personal ability to take care of yourself. It wasn't so much about,
Behavior.
it wasn't so much about behavior, so I wanted to make a clear distinction about whether maybe we don't need two policies, maybe it's all incorporated in a code of conduct, but it's different. I don't want to be able to I don't wanna feel bad if somebody comes in, say, with, a spouse. I really want my spouse to come here, I need a break, but they need a little assistance toileting. I'm sorry, we can't do that, there are adult daycares, you know what I mean? So I didn't want this to morph into a behavior so much policy, it
Maybe
was
we should
all
call
about
it
your
health.
personal.
Maybe we should, instead of participation standards, it
Yeah.
should be health standards for participation.
Health, I like a different word, I don't know if
Yeah,
I
it's
like
not really
health,
health,
cause that means
yeah.
like, oh, you're not,
Kind of function, but you
it's
don't-
function, it's functional, like, are you able to function independently?
Mm.
That's what I wanted this policy to be, does that make sense?
Well, I think you should say, participants need to function independently without assistance.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And put the word independently in there.
That's a good word.
It makes it very clear, but maybe participation is not the word.
That's what I'm thinking,
Mhm.
right, yeah.
Independent function standards?
It's really a baseline or baseline ability, and of course, you don't wanna, that's not really the term.
Right,
Because you don't wanna distinguish from someone who may be handicapped.
correct, right.
It's a, so participation is just the word that
You can't
I'm
help being
I'm
popular.
having trouble with.
I
think
agree,
they're all spam
because
calls.
participation kind of goes back to code of conduct, you
Yeah,
can't
right.
participate here if you do
Right,
this, this, and
right.
this. This isn't saying you can't participate if you, well, it is, I guess, it's just saying if you want to be, come to the center, we can't offer you
You might-
any support for your activities of daily living,
You
which
might
is
just call it
toileting and feeding and,
Sorry, you
Yeah.
might just call it a personal care policy. I mean, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
okay.
You
Yeah.
expect everyone
Personal
who
care rather than health,
comes
yeah, we're talking about personal care,
to be
that's
able
what it's about,
to
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
take care of their personal needs.
right.
Personal
Mhm.
care.
That's good.
I mean, temporarily, unless somebody can, unless we can
Because it
think of
even,
something
you know,
better, but.
and that's why, because this flows over to people that have a level of dementia that they're wandering. We've had to deal with this, people leaving the building. We can't
Oh.
have people here that wander. We don't have the staff, and so we had to work with the family to say, I'm sorry, they can't come back unless they have an attendant. So that's why I put in orientation to time and place,
Mhm.
because that's really dangerous. And again, we're not a locked facility, we do not have staff that can monitor that. Certainly we don't, if you have a level of dementia, there's all different levels.
Yeah.
But once you can't orientate, I mean, even, I guess you can be dropped off and not know what day or time it is. So maybe it needs to be wandering, you know what I mean? Yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe that's a little harsh, but I wanted that to refer to folks that, or even if they, they will stay put, but they're like, how am I getting home? How am I getting home? How am I getting home? And then they're starting to infringe upon, we've had those issues too, like they're driving me crazy, they won't stop, they don't know how they got here, they don't know how they're getting home, and then it becomes all time consuming to help this certain individual
Right.
Your
feel
problem.
safe. Right, and you don't, and again, it's infringing upon the activities of somebody else when someone gets to a point of like, you just can't manage that anymore, they need more one-on-one supervision.
Do you think there's any value in leading off the policy with a statement that the senior center is not a locked facility, we do not have the level of staff?
Yeah.
Just as you stated, because I think people need to understand that it's just not an arbitrary thing, that
Right.
you need to establish what you can do and why this is a baseline expectation. Something, maybe a sentence or two to explain that in order to participate in, that people need to be independent in order to take advantage of what we
Right.
have to offer.
Right.
To make it clear
Mhm.
that this is not a care facility.
Right, I don't know if I wanna put locked, it
Yeah,
sounds like,
yeah,
oh, that sounds
yeah.
awful, but I think,
Yeah.
just referring to,
Use
Well,
the
senior
word,
center
use the
just
word monitoring.
does not
Yeah.
have staff to monitor individuals that would need assistance
Or a
with
higher level of.
a higher level of assistance,
Yeah.
or any assistance with feeding and toileting. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah.
we're not gonna do that at all.
Mhm.
Maybe a higher level of assistance with orientation to time and place,
Mhm.
We're basically not a assisted living or nursery
adult,
home.
or adult daycare,
Or adult
because there's
daycare.
certainly, there's a couple out there that, are just
Yeah.
such a better fit to keep people stimulated and, engaged, more one-on-one, it truly is a place to be, lean towards more independent here. Not that that means you have to be completely independent.
And you could add a sentence at the end that, individuals who require this level of care might be better served by an adult daycare center. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just giving them the, but they can come, even if they're better at an adult daycare.
If they have
If they have a companion,
Okay.
they might be better at adult daycare, and certainly I think that might be a side,
Side issue.
Yeah,
not in a
because I
policy.
want them to be able to come if they have a companion,
Mhm.
or somebody that can.
Are there people who come with a companion?
Yeah, there are.
Do you end up with issues related to falls and
Not really.
basically ability to walk?
No,
Okay.
never really had that issue. I mean, there's people that have scooters, that are able to, there are lots of walkers, and, if you're, we've had individuals in wheelchairs that really can't transfer to a toilet or anything, but then they don't toilet when they're here. And that's up to them until there might be an issue with hygiene. If there's accidents happening and, we have to address that because they're not able to toilet themselves while they're here. And then they just are, sitting in whatever, so,
And for everybody.
yeah.
So this
Okay.
one we'll rework and.
Let's keep
and
reworking this. I
Do
think I'll
that
work
again
with-
at our next meeting.
Oh, for sure, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But a good start,
Mhm.
that's a good start.
Yeah.
And I like that the personal care policy feels way better than participation standards.
Yes, it sounds more humane.
Right, it sounds more humane.
And it gets
Um,
down to
it's-
what the
it's more
issue
clear.
really is.
Right,
you know.
exactly. And then maybe what we'll do, rather than hash this other two out, is we develop, and you guys take these home, and then we'll talk about them when we get back. So we started to develop an emergency protocol because of the situation that occurred last month or the month before. And our people didn't know what to do or who to go to, and so I did one for the upper level because, my staff as a senior center, we don't staff the upper level. But then as I started to think, and I contacted rec, I was gonna do it just between the hours of 8 and 4 because that's what we are, but I expanded it for all day, all night, because then we can post this and everybody's comfortable with where do they go and who do they call, especially at night. And so I worked with rec to get some information. So there's two different ones for upper level and lower level because upper level has recreation staff available that any participant of any program of any age should be able to go to them as a city staff. And then lower level is us. And so then we can post one on the upper level and one on the lower level. So you guys look at this and then we can talk about this the next time because we might have a lot of changes to this as well. So we have a really nice locked
There's-
case now that we can
It's
post
a
this.
pair, I think.
Yeah, it's a pair.
Oh,
It's a pair, I'm
okay.
sorry, yeah. So, and then I'm
Oh,
gonna look
yes, it is a pair.
for something to post in a safe place upstairs. Okay. There you go, and there you go. Yeah, so you guys can make those comments and bring them next time,
Okay.
yeah.
What is the date of the next meeting? Do we have one?
Well, I am so sorry, I added it in my last minute before I posted it with the city, but the next, you might have missed it on, I missed it on your agenda, April 9th.
Okay, shall we proceed on then to Senior Center Friends?
Okay, just a couple of, things going on. We have one new board member, her name is Judith Snackers. If anybody knows her.
What was the name? I'm sorry.
Judith Knackers.
Oh.
I think it's Knacker.
A lot of Judys, aren't there?
Yeah, right.
How old we all are.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest news of the day is that the pancake breakfast committee met yesterday. I'm actually the chairperson of that group. And we decided that we really needed to change gears, and we're not going to do the breakfast until the fall, given the concerns about the
Coronavirus?
virus. Yeah.
Do we have a new date?
No. We will get that together so that, we were pretty far along with the planning for the, we had Jill was giving me the keys and everything. But it just doesn't make any sense, the way things are progressing, so rapidly.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if I can, this is not related to the senior center, but the Books and Brews is coming up at the
Oh, right.
library. And I'm in charge of getting the donations for the silent auction. And I'm wondering if that is going to be canceled.
Could be.
I think Jill is gonna be talking about the virus later
Okay.
and ramifications.
Yeah.
the board, the Friends Board also had, Jill had talked with us about the two policies that we just talked about here.
Oh.
And I think everybody is, supportive of the need for those. And I think that's about all that you need to know.
We'll keep talking until she gets back.
Should be right back.
Are there any any trips that are planned for the near future, and have those been affected?
I haven't heard whether, what the travel agencies are doing, because that all kind of happened after we had our meeting, so.
My wife is coordinator
Yeah,
of
right.
of the committee, the travel committee, and she's been in touch with all the travel goes through Mayflower, and Mayflower's cancellation policy. If you bought the cancel for any reason thing, their policy is much better than an awful lot of other ones. A lot of the other ones give vouchers, and I believe that Mayflower's, if you cancel, is you get your money back, except for the cost for for your insurance. But they're and Kathy's been getting calls from people that are currently signed up, and what about this, what about that, and everything's kind of floating around. But Mayflower seems to be handling it real well. But nothing's been canceled as of now that I know of. No.
Is there anything coming up for the spring? I know the fall colors, that one was really popular, but
Well,
that's...
the Greece trip is this summer.
It's in May, isn't it?
Is it in May? And I
So
know,
the travel ban, I don't know what
you
was
wonder how
announced last night. They would have to cancel it then.
Well, I don't know. There was
I mean,
some sort of clarification
Absolutely.
on
There are a lot of
clarified Trump's
clarifications.
comments that the travel ban does not apply to U.S. people. It's only
People
From
coming
Europe.
in.
from
But
Europe.
but the question was, what if you're over in Europe and you're a U.S. person? Can you come home?
Can you come home, right?
Yeah.
And
So
I
Greece.
What
said
if you're in
that's
Italy?
Oh.
or
go
anywhere
anywhere.
except England, right?
Right.
Well,
For
yeah,
now.
Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
I
who
read
knows
something
what's going to
this
happen?
morning, yeah.
Anyway, so
It's-
your question is a good one, and it's a wait and see.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Don.
Nothing actionable. We just had had presentations from 2 grant recipients, just giving updates on how things went.
Okay.
They went well.
And their grants are over? Or they're just starting currently?
These are from last year's
They were
grants.
from last year,
These are
yeah,
from last
okay.
year's, yeah.
Yeah, the food pantry, was that it? The river
There's,
food? The forest
nothing's been, I don't think, announced.
for
at
the
this
next
point.
run, yeah.
Oh, can I
yeah,
just,
yeah.
so Don represents the area agency on aging. So, I just want to make sure that, I just want Don.
Yeah, we really
Next
want to
item.
highlight Don this month.
Thank you. Nice to be acknowledged.
Well, they didn't have it on the TV screen. Okay, anything else, Don? Okay. Jill, director's reports.
Okay, let's see. The senior housing, we went, staff went there last week and looked at it, and it is beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely a beautiful facility. The apartments are beautiful. The social rooms areas are just gorgeous. The apartment manager is really serious about screening people that are going to live there and what they're going to allow, and I think they're slated to open in May. So the 30% of your income units they went to veterans, and those are full. The 40% of your income units are full with a 5-year wait list already.
Already?
Already.
Wow.
The 50% are almost gone, and then they'll move up to the market rate. Unfortunately, I mean, it's fortunate that we have affordable housing, but you know, the more affordable apartments, there's less of those allocated, you know, so anyway, I think, you know, and I shared that with Mike to bring to the housing task force, that it just really reflects the need for affordable housing. But I'm super excited about working with them. The apartment manager, again, was, you know, anxious to get to know us, and she'll be coming down to tour the senior center, so she knows what's available here, and just have a really good working relationship with them. So, yeah. And transportation, you know, again, we'll see how it goes. We can just see, hopefully people will wanna come,
Yeah.
you know, so.
There's parking there though,
There
right?
is.
So many people who.
Could drive, and they're right on a bus line,
Right.
although the bus won't bring them down here.
Right,
Yeah.
but they still might have.
Correct,
car.
absolutely,
Mhm.
yeah. So there's 160 units.
What is the
there.
range in price?
You know, for the apartments, I think they went as low, you could go as low as like 700 for a 2-bedroom, you know, up to maybe like.
But those are all full.
Correct. The least expensive ones are full, and then the market rate, you know, 1,200, something like that. Whatever market rate is for a 2-bedroom, if you pay, you know, your income does not make you eligible for the subsidies. So a nice broad range, and you know, if a 2-bedroom brand new beautiful apartment in Dane County at 1,200 is not, that's the norm. I mean, they're not, you know, skyrocket, you know.
There are a lot more where you can't.
Well,
I mean, they're 1,800 and.
for sure, like the
Yes.
luxury apartments that will go up by Target,
Mhm.
luxury senior living or whatever, I bet those will be out of control. They'll be more expensive.
Yep, that's nicely.
They're,
Sorry.
they're supposed to
That-
be like 3,000 a month,
Correct,
but
right.
that's,
And that's
it
not
includes meals
and
and
again,
chauffeur
right.
service
That's
and.
not unusual, you know, there's many senior apartment complexes that
Mhm.
are $3,000 a month as an independent person.
How much does Capitol Lakes cost?
You know, I don't know. I know the one that they just opened in Stoughton was near 4,000 for independent. You know, with some services provided. You know, you look at memory care. You know, you're up at 6, 7,
Mhm.
8,000 a month or more. Right.
Yeah.
It's just, it's unsettling how people are going to afford to age
Right.
Mhm.
if you don't have a lot of income.
Mhm.
Age well might not be in there.
I'm thinking. It's not gonna be a.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a grim
So
thought.
anyway, that's the housing, so we'll keep
one-
working with them and I'll keep you updated.
One question I was gonna ask
Sure.
about senior housing or suggest is that within the senior housing, that they set up a carpooling,
Sure.
program
Mhm.
so that people that come down here
Right.
with one person in a 4-person car
Right,
can bring some others along.
absolutely.
And-
Because
and-
parking is not good now.
Well, and it's funny, cause we were talking about that not just this week, as they were, it's time to submit for the capital improvement plan that's coming up. And, I said, well, we need a new parking lot. Oftentimes you can't find a place to park out there. And then I was looking out there and there's this, I don't know where you
Like-
go. I mean, we could, you know, go back maybe, but there's an orchard back there and then I think there's a big hole eventually.
There's a,
Where they
it's
built
pretty-
for Goliath 100
Yeah.
years ago. Goliath was gonna
could
come
take
in.
all the trees out next to your office there.
Oh, no, no. But anyway,
There's
yeah.
probably property lines and setbacks and things to
Yeah,
look at as well.
So anyway, yeah, that's funny, cause I did think that, and I
Mhm.
did look, and I was like, I wonder where we would go, you know.
Well, if we have serious discussions about police station
Right,
Mm.
right,
and police department
Right.
vacates the building
Right.
and the parking lot.
correct.
That
Then
would-
we'll need
Yeah.
a little shuttle service. Oh, we could get a volunteer to do that.
Well, then we
Yeah,
could, we could
that's a
take
golf
over
cart.
we could take over the office space and et cetera of the police department and just run from the fireplace room,
Underground
corridor.
tunnel there,
Doesn't have
yeah.
to be underground, it could be
Yeah.
over, it could
Yeah.
go straight over.
You got a hill to get over the police
There-
department.
yes.
Not
Yeah.
at the lower level.
Oh yeah, go look.
Mhm.
It's nice.
Oh, yeah.
I've climbed it many times. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, things to think about in terms of expanding. And, you know, I mean, I think that the CIP is 20 years, so, right? Isn't it 20 years now? 10. Are you sure?
Yeah, it's the next 5 years in detail and a
then, just the,
five-year
yeah,
look ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, it's something to think about. Let's see. Aging Advocacy Day, I just wanted to, and I can send you an electronic copy, but that is what I work with at WAN, the Wisconsin Aging and Advocacy Network, and that's when we go to the Capitol and we have issue briefs, which transportation was always one of them. So that's coming up again in May, so I'll send it all to you.
Okay.
You know, electronically. I don't think the registration is open yet, but it's May 12th. And who knows whatever
Yeah.
might happen, but we've talked
Yeah.
about it. But anyway, it's just a great day to meet with your legislators. WAN, the Wisconsin Aging and Advocacy Network, develops the issue briefs, so it's a consistent message to every single legislator. And this year, the issue briefs are affordable housing. And so this is statewide, this is for the state funding. Affordable housing, affordable health care, caregivers, tax credits for caregivers and some other legislation. And I want to say, is it on there, Laura? Did they talk about the issue briefs on there?
Transportation.
That's what I was going to say. I want to say transportation. But anyway, so I will send that, and then when the issue briefs come out, I can send copies of those. And then my role with WASC, the Wisconsin Association of Senior Centers, I'm working with them. We were going to try to get a bus to bring people down from up north, because that's where we're lacking in advocacy, particularly face-to-face, is folks up north. So we're working with WASC to now maybe offer scholarships for folks to come down to pay for transportation. Lunch is a donation, but to just really encourage people from at least 2 hours away to drive down for the day, because it's a super impactful day when people can meet face-to-face with a legislator or a staffer. Oftentimes it's a staffer, but our message was heard last year, and it really is a good thing to do, and it's a fun day to just walk around the Capitol and know that advocacy does work. Your voice, you have a voice, and this is the day to use it. So anyway, I'll send this electronically.
Good.
Yeah. And then lastly, I don't want to go in, read your newsletter. We got a lot going on. The biggest thing is our St. Patty's Day party next Tuesday, which I'm just all over the place about what, we met as a city in terms of policy, mostly affiliated with employees if the city shuts down or we can't work. We're getting some direction from Dane County about the meal program. At this point, they're just saying, we recommend you advise older adults with any underlying conditions. So if you have diabetes or, congestive heart failure, kidney issues, that you don't attend. But it's an advisory, we can't ask people not to come. We can advise them. We think, or certainly if they're sick. We have signs down there. If you're sick, go home.
Stay home.
Stay home. But when do we start to cancel programs? Do I have 75 people come next Tuesday for St. Patty's Day? Do I leave that to be a self-determining situation for adults? Do I cancel exercise because everybody has hand weights and we'll be talking about that with instructors. Yoga has 20 people crammed in a small room, but most of those yoga classes, those folks are 60s and 70s. They're very independent. They're able to make their own decisions. So I'm really struggling as to what to do. What is our responsibility to the greater cause, to not gather people in a place? And then when is it personal responsibility to make sure you wash your hands? If you're really afraid, you stay home. We do have hand sanitizer stuff down there. We talk about washing your hands all the time. So I'm open to comments, because I'm just struggling. I think the time will come as more cases are identified that we won't really have a choice, that it will just be silly for us to offer programs or have a congregate meal program. But this week and maybe next week, and again, this party is kind of hanging over my head.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, any feedback is good. What do you guys think?
My main thought is that it has like a 2-week incubation period,
Right.
And for most people, the symptoms are fairly mild. So how many cases are already floating around or in the process of
Right,
already
right,
that we don't know about?
right.
Right, and you can
A lot.
be contagious before you have
You
any
know, right,
symptoms.
right.
Right.
The thing that I guess troubles me about it is that I was reading an article about some of the conspiracy theories about, you know, and there, the comment was that people who believe that it's a hoax, then tend to engage in dangerous behaviors to prove that it's a hoax. So they don't stay home when they're sick, or they
Mhm.
don't do any, observe any
Take
of the
any
precautions.
Right,
Because they don't believe that it's as serious, or, you know, or they may not even think it's a hoax, but they don't think it's as
it's not
serious.
serious,
Right.
right.
And so there's no need to stay home, or it's
Mhm.
just a cold, so I can go wherever I feel like and not change my behavior at all. And so that's the risk that you run is not only just what's out there, but also people behaving in a unsafe way.
Irresponsible, right.
Yeah.
And
I was
we-
listening to, on the way into this meeting, I was listening to NPR, and they had a person from World Health Organization, but it wasn't the spokesperson, it was a member, a US member. And she was saying that that the transmission with droplets in
Oh,
the
yeah,
air,
yeah.
she was saying that it generally goes about 3 or 4 feet, and it just normal talking, normal conversation can project these things. So you don't actually have to be coughing or anything like that. And I thought, you know, in the transmission, you know, and it's just my opinion. The Irish luncheon that we're having coming up. Personally, if I were you, I would cancel it, because people don't know if they are sick,
Right, yeah.
and you don't have to be coughing to transmit it. And you're packing those people in on those tables that are very close together. You know, and everybody involved would understand.
Right,
You know, they
right.
would say, "Well, boy, good job of taking proactive measures."
Plus, the group that you're providing it for
Right.
is a high-risk group.
Right.
And
Right,
they're
yeah.
including anyone over 60.
Yeah.
I know.
Now they're meddling.
Now they're, yeah.
Well, the newspaper, you know, heading was that they shut down all the dormitories, all the.
Oh, yeah, all
everybody
the
had to
schools,
leave.
yeah,
I
right,
mean, I
right.
think that's a pretty dire.
Well, the NBA canceling,
Right, well, yeah, I mean, those, yeah, huge crowds
That's just
too.
amazing.
It is.
Mhm.
So,
Didn't something come through, though? I thought Sharon said something came through about the food, the lunch program.
I sent an email saying we're
I thought she got
monitoring
it-
this
I thought she
and.
got it from that other group.
Oh, maybe. It's probably the same information, and again, we're all meeting as directors today.
And
To talk
congregate
about-
meals, you know,
Mhm.
I guess I would recommend, and we do this for snow days or whatever.
Is everybody
is
gets home
Everybody
delivered.
gets home delivered.
Right,
And then you only have to worry about the 3 people in the kitchen, because,
Right.
and the driver. You might have to have an extra driver on, but you wouldn't be taking the risk of bringing people in and exposing them.
right, no,
And Barbara's point
and so
about
if
these are
we're-
the people who really, this is a
Right.
high risk group.
right.
Mhm.
But then I look towards aerobics and exercise and, you know,
Yeah.
should we put a moratorium on those classes, you know, say for a month,
Yeah.
you know?
I didn't go for that reason.
Well, and that's what I mean, so
Right,
some
because
people
of
are
all that stuff,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
saying like, I don't wanna do this, but,
Yeah, right.
what do you think? What are they doing at American Family over there? That's a lot of employees.
Yeah, I'm not at the corporate office. So
Oh, you're not,
We,
okay.
we have travel limitations right now.
That's it,
and,
yeah.
But I've heard other offices not allowing visitors who don't work there, encouraging working from home, things like that. It's a hard balance between not continuing the panic that has causing toilet paper and everything to be out of
Right,
stock,
right.
but making sure that you are keeping people safe.
Right, right. And I feel bad not letting people come because this is the only people they interact with is us every day, a lot of them. And so it just makes me sad to
Yeah.
think that they have to stay home every day. But, I want to be cautious, but I don't want to be part of the hype that's like, it's not that bad yet, but you know what I mean? So I'm just all over the place.
Well, it prevents spread.
It prevents
Yeah.
spread, right,
That,
right.
it's a precautionary move as much as it is reacting to
Correct,
known
right.
outbreak.
Well, they've been talking too how there's a need to just slow the process.
Right.
Because
Correct.
if everybody gets sick at once, it's gonna
It's
overwhelm
gonna be,
the
right,
system.
Right.
like in Italy, yeah.
One of the things I cannot help considering is the reality that the majority of the people in the United States are one paycheck, maybe two paychecks away from homelessness.
Right.
They ain't going to not go to work, including doing food preparation at places we eat, just because they're not feeling well.
No, I agree. I mean, those people don't have a choice. A lot of folks don't have a choice.
I would hope by now Pick and Save has already pulled their salad bar.
I don't know, but I wouldn't eat at it, but.
They've got a
But
little.
those are the kinds
Yeah,
of
right,
things.
follow the rules.
Sure, they're safe.
Yeah, sneeze on the glass. It's there for a reason. No.
Well, we know that glass is going
No,
to
I
stop
know.
anything
Oh,
from
sure.
going under.
Does.
So.
I was just there last night and bought 2 salads for tonight.
I'm
That
sorry.
didn't even enter my head.
Oh.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, we can do our part, but there's just so many other situations, but.
And
And I'm thinking about the bus, and we have people on a bus, and then if we don't transport people to shopping, how are they going to get food? And so, we're working with RSVP, who is looking at their policy of telling their drivers they may not transport anyone who has, a fever, of course. But if you have any of these symptoms, a stuffy nose, a cough, body aches, shortness of breath, and I was like, well, that's a lot of people that don't have the virus that and so how critical are those appointments, and when do we say what's essential and what's not? Food is essential, so yeah, we can keep doing the meal program and home deliver everybody. We need to start looking at, we haven't had one medical driver just question, like, what are you guys thinking? And this is an RSVP policy, so we're meeting about that today too. But yeah, I mean, there are some services that we do want to continue, but the more just non-essential programs, maybe we look at starting to cancel everything starting next week. We're also looking at independent contractors not being paid because we've canceled their program. So there's just so much to consider. And again, I don't want to overreact and I don't want to underreact, and I just feel right in the middle. So.
With the grocery runs, could those folks be referred to the stores themselves, because the stores have the delivery service?
Yeah, possibly, if they can afford, and maybe the friends can pick up those fees for a grocery delivery. Sure, that's a good idea.
I was going to say, can we talk to the store and ask them that if people mention senior center, that those fees are, what's the word?
Reduced.
Or,
Waived. Uh-huh.
Well,
Will they
Or
waive
equate to what it
delivery
would cost
fees
them to
for
do it
seniors?
plus.
Right. And we can work, maybe it's the senior center making those referrals to the store, like, this particular person, so, and if they say no, then going to the friends to say, we'll work with the grocery store to say we can pick up these fees via our friends group. It's not indefinitely, I don't think. I think we're gonna peak and it's gonna be a month, and then hopefully possibly die down.
And even having the senior go out into that environment
Is
a
dangerous,
risk.
right?
And
Yeah.
My daughter's in med school and called me yesterday and said, don't let grandma go out.
Yeah.
Go grocery shopping for her, go to the bank
Mhm.
for her, don't let her go out right now.
Right, right.
And I think everybody everywhere needs to unplug any hand blow dryers. Because I'll bet you even
Oh, really?
with the
Blowing around.
20-second and this is the way to wash your hands, I'm willing to bet that still doesn't happen. It's a quick rinse, maybe a little bit of soap, and then you and blow all the germs
Well,
around the whole
luckily
room.
We don't have those. Yeah, so.
We need
Yeah.
disposable paper.
Just live in a bubble, for the next few
Mhm.
months, so.
So I don't
Okay.
know if we've given you the answers. This isn't precedent, right? In our lifetimes, we've never seen
Indeed.
anything at
Mhm.
this scale,
Never.
and everyone's trying to figure it out
Yep.
from
Mhm.
how to
Well,
make a
it's-
living to
yeah.
keep people
Safe.
going every day, their
Right.
routines.
Right, and, yeah,
There's a lot to figure out.
yeah.
Especially when you're working with the identified population of
Right.
greatest risk.
Right, right. And we have that list with our case managers. We've already identified the most high-risk folks that have home delivered, people that don't have family, indeed, if they can't get out at all. And we're working on a list of the case management clients too that are most at risk. If indeed, if for some reason the state or the county shuts the city down, then we're not providing anything. And so then what are these folks gonna do? So anyway, we're talking as a city. Like I said, I'm meeting with senior center directors this afternoon, just to kind of get a feel for what everybody else is doing as well. I think we're all at that same stage of, we don't wanna panic, but we also don't wanna expose, if we don't
Be
have to.
cautious.
And we wanna be cautious, so.
And in the meantime, for fitness classes, that you can ask the instructors to spray things down.
Yeah,
That's
we
what we're doing at
have.
the gym.
Yep.
Like,
And last week, and it's so ever evolving. Last
Yeah.
week, I talked to the instructors and nobody had concerns, like, we're all right, I'm not worried, but this week could be a different ballgame. So, yeah, another email went out.
We sprayed the
Just
mats
say, yep.
at the Bones class.
Yeah, and I just got,
yeah.
a new spray bottle and, here's the steps we can take. But people are starting to ask us, we're getting calls like, what are you doing,
Things
Well,
changed this week.
Things changed.
The big-
Things
yeah.
That's
elevated.
exactly right.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, that's how I
Yesterday,
felt.
I agree.
Yesterday with the
I agree.
university
Yesterday was a key
shutting.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shock.
Yeah.
I just got back from a cruise on Norwegian Airlines.
You
Or
did?
yes.
How long ago?
3 days. No.
Cough, cough.
They didn't quarantine you?
6 feet?
No, I mean, I have never seen a ship cleaner than Norwegian cruises were. When we went into the restaurant, they sprayed our hands,
Yeah, I've heard that.
and the staff was constantly going over the railings, and they just did everything they could to keep that ship clean. And as far as I know, there was another group coming on right as we
Are
left.
you serious?
Mhm.
Wow.
And I have a
That's
friend now that's on a cruise right now. So I think we got out at the very best time, because this was before much of this had happened. But
Although now you can buy 2 weeks, get 2 free on a cruise ship.
I know, this is the best time to
That was a
travel
bad
ever. I see what you're saying.
And if you have an overseas flight, you're almost guaranteed extra legroom because
Yes.
it will be only half full.
Well, one of my staff's like, I can go to Miami round trip for $88, and like, so.
You're gonna get there and stay there.
It's the cheapest time
Okay.
to travel.
Not gonna come back.
Let's
Yeah.
focus on the senior center, not
So
trips.
I'm not making any decisions, but I do feel like you've given me some feedback to move me, towards what I need to be at. And after we meet with the directors today, I think, we'll make some calls this week.
Well, and you certainly have a model with the university and
Right,
all
right,
these
right. That's
other
what I said, like,
public
yesterday
organizations.
was really telling
It's
to
not
me.
as if you're out there on your own.
Right, right.
You really kind of need to follow along with
Correct,
everybody
right,
at what's
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah,
And anybody that comes through during early voting hours, they need to be told to come prepared to go vote. Voting is also going to be a big question. I'm certain there will be staff discussion related to the long lines and everything else on election day. We need to encourage people to ask for mail ballots. We need to encourage people to come into City Hall
Yeah.
and vote early,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so we can reduce the number of people at polling places on election day.
Right, right.
Is early voting starting Monday?
I believe
I
so.
think so,
Okay.
yeah. And then, so we're putting on our website, and I've asked Mandy to shoot it out to volunteers, and we'll start to make announcements downstairs.
Mhm.
And then it'll go in our April newsletter, because I think it goes up until April 2nd. You can early vote, and then April 3rd you cannot.
That might be right.
Yeah, so you will have at
And
least a
that,
week
that
in the
last
newsletter,
weekend,
too.
they're going to hold early voting open until
Extended
6 o'clock.
hours, yeah, so,
So-
okay, well,
Alright.
that gives me good information,
So the table tents downstairs read, "Have you voted yet?"
yeah.
starting Monday.
Okay, anything else?
I don't want to keep us too long, but I just had an inquiry. Does anyone know about the COPA, C-O-P-A, that's being planned? It's like a community performing arts for everyone.
Oh,
people
I just,
into-
what I read about it in the
Okay.
Star.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is that what you
I
know?
haven't read that yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I'm
Dorothy, do you know?
I know a little bit.
okay.
You have questions or?
No, I was just interested if
Okay.
there's a role for this
Oh,
community
oh.
to have access to get wind of what's going on there, things like that. But it doesn't need to be a full
Yeah.
discussion.
I'll look into it. I know it's just like in the fundraising
Right.
sort of, right, and
Mhm.
it's being driven by a Fitchburg resident.
$35 million
Mhm.
worth of fundraising.
Yeah,
Mm.
just peanuts.
And
Yeah.
they want it fully funded before they break ground, so that they don't go into the venture in debt, because that would be one way to end up having it not work. They do want to work with the populations of need. They will be, if they get what they want, they will be right across the street from the new senior apartment on Traceway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there would be definite interaction between those two. I don't know that senior center programming or whatever would be involved, because that's more transportation issues.
I thought it was up off a Post, but it's off a Traceway?
The new Traceway,
Oh, I'm-
after it punches through, isn't it?
Oh, after it punches through, yeah.
It's gonna be on the east side of Fish Hatchery Road. I thought.
Post might be correct too,
Maybe it will be between Traceway and Post.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
so it's gonna be
Yeah.
easy travel,
yeah.
transit distance between.
Mhm. Nice. So if I hear anything, I'll make sure to report next
Mhm.
month too.
Okay.
All right.
Announcements? Our next meeting is going to be April 9th then. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Adjourned.